I know. I went to get coffee this morning. I just was like struggling. I was like, I got 5 minutes. I don't know if I can. So I just parked and walked. I was like, I'll get coffee later.
I was so glad when I saw you too, because I wore my shirt that has like leopard print on it, and I'm like, this is the only thing that I have, and when I wear it, I'm like, Molly King.
I love that.
I know. It's really nice. So glad to see you.
Good to see you.
All right. Welcome to In the Act. It's a radio program on process in the creative life. Creativity does not just start and stop with artists. We all make aesthetic or guiding decisions. Our aim is to talk through the process and investigate how we choose to express ourselves and live creatively. We're connecting with people about their lives, and that's the subject of our show. Broadcasting from Mead Public Radio. Mead Public Library in Sheboygan, Wisconsin on Mead Community Radio. I'm Erica Hunsinger, and this is In the Act. And today's guest is Molly King. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yay. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about, or tell the viewer, or tell the viewers, they can't see you, but our listeners about some of the labels I feel like you have, which is like teacher, dancer, yoga, mother, friend, daughter, sister, amazing person, creative. And so tell us a little bit about yourself. How do you
Okay, that's kind of a loaded question.
Okay, we don't have to start there. We don't. We can back up and like move into that later. What's fun for you right now?
I think what's fun for me are my girls, really.
Yeah.
I think it's been really interesting to like view the world through their eyes.
Yeah.
They're just at such a fun age where they're just wanting, like, just very curious, wanting to investigate everything, questioning everything we do or see. And it's just really fun to be in their world right now.
Which is like full of creativity.
Yes.
And like impromptu and risk-taking and challenges and navigating. And, right.
Yeah, my youngest really likes to do dance parties.
Oh, fabulous.
And it's just super fun, like any kind of song. Like it could be classical music or pop radio or whatever the case is. I mean, she is just feeling the music and just really coming up with some like wonderful material that I feel like I need to steal for my dance classes.
Totally, I bet. And does she adapt her moves for like to the music that she's listening to?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I just love that. Like no inhibitions, just going with it and just loving every moment. It's real fun to watch.
Oh, that's so fun. That's great.
Yeah.
Does she try and teach you?
Yes. We have dance class where she's the teacher and I'm the student.
Yeah.
And so she'll lead me through whatever she feels like that day. Maybe sometimes it's ballet orientated. Otherwise, it's just like follow this movement or follow the leader. And it's real fun to see that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Do they, because you're a teacher and you were doing a lot of teaching online at home, virtual.
Yes.
They were with you and helped or watched or learned from your teachings of dance, through that too?
Yeah. And so for them, when they see a computer or they see a phone, they instantly think there's like somebody on the other end. So it's like even if I'm just checking an email or a text message, like, oh, well, who are you talking to? And it's like, well, I'm not really like talking to anybody. I'm just taking care of a message. But for them, they just assume that there's an audience on the other side that needs attention.
Which is such an interesting perspective that you wouldn't have known.
Yes.
Those are assumptions that adults make, right? But these are then child assumptions that because we're Zoom all the time.
Exactly. Yeah. And my oldest has drawn out a computer on a sheet of paper and has like folded it so it sits on the table, and then she'll like do things in front of the computer.
That's amazing.
Like instruct, students or be talking, to somebody in a conversation. And it's so even that's like coming into their play that they do.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. That's like you're like being informed and teaching and like this weaving through your whole life of those pieces.
Yeah. Yeah.
And was there, if I recall, a dance that was made up by one of your girls?
Yeah, by Nora.
Then,
by the oldest. Mm-hmm.
That was then taught to your students, right? Or
it was more so she wanted to put this out there because she knew that, we were all in lockdown essentially with the start of COVID. So we're in the basement. And so in between my teaching schedule, she's like, well, I want to create a dance sequence that other people can learn or do. So so she created a dance and then we kind of put it on social media. And I did have a few people that had like responded to it and, younger kids that had created their own pieces inspired by Nora's movement piece.
How beautiful. I mean, what a cool collaboration.
Yeah.
Across the divide of this bizarre timeline that we're living in.
Yes, I know. Mm-hmm.
And how to be creative within those relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And connections.
Yeah. And I think for them too, like being at home is okay. I feel like maybe pre-pandemic, which is so weird to say. Like, I feel like I catch myself saying like before COVID or, but even before then, I feel like just when I think about my high school and middle school students, like being at home was like a drab. And I feel like for my girls, they have made home fun.
Yeah.
That they find that just as fun as going to Disney World, there's so much imagination and different ways that they play that they know how to make wherever they are a fun place for them.
Yeah. Well, and you foster that though.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like that's a drive that you have for your students, yourself, and your children.
Yeah.
So, how are you experiencing your own dance right now?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I feel like there's a lot of, I feel like my dance is very interesting right now in terms of education, in terms of like my personal life with my husband's health as well too. Yes. So I feel like it's almost like a balancing dance, making sure that I am able to put myself out there for everybody and make sure that I'm giving myself then to everybody equally, which is difficult.
Yeah. That's really difficult. I mean, that balancing act is really hard to manage all of those different pieces.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some ways in which you can do that?
Yeah, I feel like I do a lot of self-care. Like I go on walks or there are a couple people I follow on social media that do online dance classes or yoga classes. So I find myself escaping into that.
Yeah.
And one thing that really came out of COVID is this like virtual world. And so a lot of artists were putting their classes out there. Like I taught a workshop at the Art Center that my sister-in-law in Colorado and some of her friends attended, which never would have happened before because workshops would have been in person. So I think there is this like virtual life that has come out of COVID that I really hope stays.
Yeah.
Because it's nice to be able to connect with other people from around the world from your home.
Absolutely.
There's something that is nice about that. So I feel like I find myself wanting to do things in solitude, like I need to go on a walk or I'm going to do this class. I'm going to shut the door or, I'll take yoga class here in town. And it's a nice escape. Like, so I find myself still going back to movement because movement really speaks to me.
Yeah.
And when I need it as a way to rejuvenate, I like to do that like on my own.
Yeah. Right. Oh, sure. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that you definitely there's that like reflection period that you need to have to like feel your toes. Mm-hmm. What does my brain feel like? How do my elbows feel? Like getting into those like other spaces that you can't even remark on or deal with. Yeah. With all the things that are going on and the constant change, I think, too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now, like, moving into a new school year and balancing as the key word here.
Yeah.
I guess I'm thinking about when you're talking about balancing, you're talking about like psychological balancing, physical balancing, translating into dance moves.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that lends itself very well to yoga and yoga practices, but also these, I just see you in my head while we're talking of like doing these like weighted balancing moves in dance, like these modern dance movements and moving through space in new ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you creating for yourself right now?
Not as much as I probably should. Yeah.
I mean, should is such a tough word. Sorry.
Yeah. But so right now, creating for the school year, like getting ready for the classes I'm going to teach and making sure I have, choreography ready for that. But not a lot of creating for myself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, teaching is an art as well, and all the work that goes into that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think I also have to remind myself that the things I make for my students essentially are things I'm making for myself.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes my students too are like, oh, I wish we could just see you dance. And I always feel like, well, I am dancing. Like I'm teaching you every day. Like I'm on the floor, rolling around with you. But I think there is something to be said about just like seeing a performance or seeing somebody get lost in their own art. But I do have to remind myself that what I create for them essentially is like what I'm feeling at that moment. Like I think about the sequence I'm creating for my contemporary class at the high school level. It's very grounded. And I feel like that's like what I'm like searching for right now is like feeling this groundedness entering a school year, which I feel like is going to be another kind of interesting school year. I was kind of hoping for some normalcy, but I don't know if that's really going to happen. So I think I'm just finding these moments of like feeling grounded. And so dance allows me, to do that. So that piece I created for school, I feel like is very heavy into the ground because that's like what I'm yearning for.
Yeah. And probably the students are as well.
Exactly. And thinking about that.
Right.
Yeah.
And that helping them teach how physically to feel grounded translates then into the psychological,
exactly.
right? Is that you get to feel grounded, be grounded, and feel grounded as like a dual component.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's a constant that's needed for us, for humans to have, right?
For sure.
Yeah. I love that. I'm just so thinking about that space and thinking about how you're creating those things for your students. Do you get also some feedback from them?
For sure.
How do you negotiate that?
Well, I really want to make sure that my sequences that I teach to my students are user-friendly because I have students that are in my class of varying background levels. So some students come in and they've been, dancing even with me in the community, or they've been dancing at a different studio, or students that have like never danced before.
Right.
So I always make sure that the sequence I create can then be translated in ways that make sense for their bodies.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think is sometimes hard in a studio setting. And I think there are lots of different progressive studios that are out there that allow voice and choice in the classroom. But like when I think about my, upbringing in a studio that I was in, it was very strict. And it was, I'm going to perform like this and you're going to perform exactly like that. Like there's no grace for how your body might work. And I think now in the dance world too is just obviously changing, and things aren't as strict. And I think, companies and directors and stuff too are realizing like, every person is so different.
Right.
And why are we always trying to, stuff people into these confined spaces when we can allow people to explore how it works within them.
Oh, fantastic.
So I feel like I really try to make sure that when students are in my classroom that they feel comfortable, and that if there's a student that wants to take a movement and challenge themselves by doing more of an advanced move, I'll offer something up to them or tell a student in my class who's at a beginning level, well, we're going to do this in the combination, but this would also be an option for you instead. Like just making sure that there are options.
Yeah.
And that it's okay for you to look different from the person next to you.
Right.
Like we're moving together, but I want you to move how you want to move.
Right.
In the same space with everybody else.
And that's such a different way of teaching and approaching learning for students and teachers that has evolved. And thank you for being on the cutting edge of that. Because it is so important to have those relationships of individuality, like teaching to the whole and as well as the individual. And it's like that almost breath between.
But I think it comes back to my like really negative experiences in dance growing up. Because I was at such a strict ballet academy and they were training essentially the dancers to go on and be, ballet dancers.
Right.
Which I just really enjoyed dancing. Like I just enjoyed being in a class and being taught and just learning. And so when I got to be about high school, obviously I'm not a ballet dancer based on my figure. Like no one would, pin me on the streets as being, oh, she's a ballet dancer,
Right.
So obviously my body wasn't where a ballet dancer should be. And I was asked to leave.
Wow.
Which really hurt me because it's like you're going into high school and already you're like body conscious, and then you have this place that was a safe place for so long, and this instructor who you really felt like was almost like a family member because you've been with
for years.
This person for years, and for him to tell you sorry, you aren't you're not cutting it anymore. You don't belong here. It was really hard to hear. And I remember asking him, well, can I just still attend classes? Like, I don't see myself ever really becoming a dancer. I just love dancing. I just want to keep learning. And he would not allow me to. So I really stepped away from dancing, and I found myself doing more like athletics in high school. I was also a part of a German folk dance group since I was a little girl. And so then I really gravitated towards that because that was very community, very open. Doesn't matter. I mean, like majority of my German dance group are people that don't dance.
Right.
Like I'm the only one in the group that, teaches dance and dances and is in this group, where other people, like my friend, is a occupational therapist, but then dances in this dance group. So it was nice to be around people who weren't pinned as dancers, but loved moving, loved learning how to dance. I really gravitated towards my German folk dance group then at that time because I felt like, okay, like this is a community. This is what I'm seeking for. And I really feel like I pull a lot of that back into my classroom because I was shunned and cut out, and I never want any of my students to ever feel the way that I had felt. And so I really feel like I bring in that community aspect of the German folk dance community into my classroom because it is important to make everyone feel welcomed and feel a part of the space.
Absolutely.
And to feel like they can, rely on everyone else too.
Yeah.
Because, even in my German folk dance group, we're doing, lifts and stuff. Like the guys are lifting the girls up in the air, and then we do tricks where we hold on to the guys. And so you really have to rely and trust on one another.
Right.
To make sure that, your dance partner is going to get you through this dance without stumbling across the floor, or, whatever the case is. And so I try to bring that into my classroom. Like we can trust each other, we're in a safe place, and really bring in encouragement as well too, and like positive speech with one another, because we never want anyone to feel inadequate.
Absolutely. Yeah. Welcome back to In the Act. I'm Erica Hunsinger. We are talking with Molly King. Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me.
I want to kind of dig into a little bit of talking about that, if we can rewind just a quick minute.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about your progression with dance, like when you started, and and then we can kind of move through into where you're.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, so I started dancing probably when I was about 4 or 5 years old at this ballet academy, William Riley Academy of Ballet.
4 or 5.
Right across from the Milwaukee Domes.
Oh, wow.
I think it's like a Fred Astaire ballroom dance place now.
Nice.
But it was, I just remember, getting into my mom's car, driving to Milwaukee, pretty much spending every night of the week there because my sister also then took dance classes there too.
Oh, awesome.
So I felt like, I don't know, just like that was like my home. I brought my homework with, we brought dinner with. William and his wife Shirley lived above the facility.
Sure.
So there were many times where I was like hanging out, in their home with the cats, and I don't know, I just felt like they were, family to me.
Totally. Yeah.
Then for the German folk dance group, second grade. A girl in my class brought these flyers in saying that, her family, directs this German folk dance company and, was just like looking for, kids to kind of fill the children's group because that was lacking. So my mom was like, well, let's just try this out. Like we're German and we like to dance. So let's try it out. And so I've been doing that ever since I've been in second grade.
Oh my gosh. I had no idea.
Yeah. So I've been, with them for 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm. And I actually was a dance instructor for the German dance group. So like I taught the kids group for probably like 5 years.
Oh, fantastic.
And then like was assistant director for the adult group as well too for a while there too, but I just loved dancing.
Yeah.
And so when I went to college, I was kind of thinking about becoming a nurse because I just really enjoy helping other people, and thought I would find myself in the medical field. But then I just kept dancing. So instead of taking, my chemistry classes or whatever I needed for my nursing degree, I just found myself in like non-major dance classes at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. So my nursing advisor at the time was like, I think you're in the wrong field. And I'm like, well, what do you mean?
Great.
And she's like, well, here's where you should be at in the nursing field and here's where you're not at, sort of thing.
Right.
Like you're kind of late and you've been taking all these dance classes. Are you sure you don't want to be,
But what a crisis or like time of change of like, this is my path. Mm-hmm. This is where I'm going.
Yeah.
I'm doing these other things, but they're just for fun and they're for me. And then having to really switch that up for yourself.
Yeah. And I was really thankful for my nursing advisor because she could have went the other way, and ignored these dance classes and been like, okay, so you took some dance classes, great. We need to shift gears and you need to, start, hunkering down on the nursing part of it. But I really love the fact that she was like, I'm noticing this here. Why don't you just go talk to, one of the advisors in the dance department and just make sure that, you're doing what you want to do sort of thing. So I really value that conversation. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So then I went to the dance department and I met with Dr. Marsha Parsons, who I still speak with today, a huge mentor in my life. And she really reminded me at that time that like dance isn't what I had experienced, Like dance itself was really changing and shifting. Everything wasn't so ballet heavy. She was explaining that at Milwaukee, there's a huge modern focus. And, when it comes to modern dancing, there isn't this, body type that we are looking for. We're looking for people who are passionate about moving. And this is kind of an opportunity to explore, that. So she really shifted my mind into thinking, okay, I guess I could do something with dance. So then kind of curious too, like, okay, so I do like to dance, like what could I do with that? So she opened up my eyes to not only dance education, but dance movement therapy as well too, which isn't very popular, I feel like, in the state of Wisconsin. Like if you go even to Illinois, Colorado, and also places on the East Coast, like dance movement therapy is a thing where, patients will get sent to a facility and they'll heal themselves essentially through movement.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, I'm digging this because she knew, that I had, originally gone to college with nursing. So she said, this might be the route that you take with your dance degree. So I was like, okay, all right, I'm digging this. And so I, switched over to the dance department. And instead of doing a BFA, I did a BA. So instead of a Bachelor of Fine Arts, I just did a Bachelor of Arts.
Right.
So I I don't know. I feel like I still got the same experience as somebody who was a BFA.
Yeah.
But then I got additional courses in education, and then I was able to still explore psychology. So I graduated with a minor in psychology.
Right.
So I felt like within my BA schedule, I was able to explore more within dance. So I was graduating that year probably with 8 other dancers. And I was the only one with a teaching, certification. So the ones that had graduated with me were really driven to, being a dance company or maybe teaching a studio or something like that. And I felt like I had more tools with me to be able to really find a job that worked for me.
Sure.
So I was at that time really thinking about, going to Illinois, going to Columbia and getting my master's in dance movement therapy. But then I met Ted Ham, who came and actually watched me student teach at the time of my senior year in college. And he was starting up these charter schools in Sheboygan. And so that summer when I was kind of contemplating, what do I do? He had said, well, why don't you come up and interview for the job? And then I've been with, these schools since graduating college. And this will be my 16th year of teaching.
No way.
Which is crazy to think that these schools have been around now for 16 years.
Right.
As well.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What is the serendipity that Ted was there?
I know, exactly.
What was that?
Yeah.
What was he doing there? That's amazing.
Well, I mean, granted, there was, some talks with Dr. Marsha Parsons. Like he had sought her out, like, do we have any dancers? And she's like, I've
got somebody.
I have Molly. So he came and observed.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And it's also
Did you know that he was coming?
Yes, I did. I was told that, somebody from Sheboygan was coming to do some observations.
Were you nervous about that?
I don't know. It was kind of odd because my student teaching was happening at an elementary school that did not have dance. So I was actually student teaching with the Phy Ed teacher.
Oh, excellent. Yes.
Because at that time in Milwaukee, a lot of the art programs were being cut. So you have like Milwaukee High School of the Arts and you have Lincoln elementary or middle school, and they didn't have art programs anymore. So art was cut, music was cut, dance was cut. And Milwaukee High School of the Arts was really the only art school at that time. That was like back in 2005. 2005, 2006. That was the only like remaining art school in MPS that still had the arts.
Wow.
And the dance teacher at that school was near retirement. So she was flat out with Marsha and was like, I don't want her coming in because I'm afraid that the principal is going to be like, all right, retire early. We want this, new person in here. So she said no to my placement.
Oh my gosh.
And so then Marsha had to get kind of, creative. And so she found this lovely, and I cannot think of the name. It was bothering me because the other day I was trying to think of the school that I taught at. And I can't. I know exactly where it is.
Yeah, you can.
It's off of 35th Street. I know exactly how to get there. But it was this beautiful, Latino, dominated population, and just everyone was just so sweet and welcoming.
Yeah.
And the woman who was the Phy Ed teacher was struggling trying to find a place to fit in, being from the LGBTQ plus community.
Okay.
And so her partner and their children went to the Montessori school in Milwaukee. So I just felt like she just was somebody that was welcoming to just kind of anything happening, because she also struggled really finding a place where she was accepted.
Absolutely.
So I just felt like we had this really wonderful bond. And because of her, I was allowed to, play and explore and do dance within the FIAD program. And we made it work, and it was really great.
That's so great.
I
love that.
It was also kind of goofy too, because their gym essentially was also the auditorium.
Oh.
So you had this like stage, and then you had these like auditorium seats, but then you had this like strip of gym floor with like basketball hoops.
Really? That's so great.
So it just was
multifunctional.
Yeah, it was multifunctional. So I just remember Ted like being, in the back of the space, just sitting there, doing his thing.
Wow.
Watching. And so he didn't really like introduce. He just kind of came and left.
Right.
Know?
Oh
Yeah.
my
So it's
gosh.
kind of like, so long story short, I felt like I wasn't really nervous, because I just was kind of in this space where I was like, I'm just making things work. So, like however he perceives that is, up to him kind of thing. Like, I don't know.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And you had such a long history of performing.
Yeah.
And knowing your body and
Yes.
And feeling so welcomed and connected. And that makes such a difference.
Yeah, it does.
In everything then.
Yes.
If you can have those grounding pieces and connections and, having the other person that's going through or has gone through another challenge similar to you, fitting in, you tend to bond over similar experiences.
Yes.
And so the compassionate tool is really useful for, it's not really a tool, a feeling.
Yeah.
To create those relationships where you might not have.
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I feel like my connection with yoga, I battled with Crohn's disease in the later part of my high school life. So I had gone to Mexico with my sister because she had graduated college, and we'd gone to Mexico together. It was kind of like a gift from my parents. And so we went, and I came back, and I'd always had kind of been feeling like digestive issues, but came back from Mexico, and everyone chalked it up like, oh, you have Montezuma's revenge, or, you got something on, you were in Mexico, and ended up finding out that I had Crohn's disease. And so I haven't had really much of a flare up later on in my adult life, but at that time was hospitalized for a while because I just couldn't keep food in my body, and my body was almost like attacking itself. And I had a doctor who was very like Eastern philosophy, and so he said, you should try some yoga as you're kind of like healing from everything.
Wow.
So I remember doing, yoga classes and just really feeling like, oh, this is wonderful, being able to listen to my body and spend quiet time with my body and find what works well for it. So then I made sure when I was then in college as a dance major that I took yoga classes within the program. And then I got my yoga certification here in town with Marcy Tauzi.
Oh.
And so that was a wonderful experience as well, too. And having yoga again as an opportunity to, find yourself and another tool that now I bring into my classrooms with my kids.
Absolutely.
And I'm also now kind of interested in doing something with trauma care and yoga. There's a lot of different programs out there right now where somebody who wants to continue their work in yoga can get, different certifications. And so I've been looking into trauma care just because of the students that I work with at Étude, some of them coming from really, hard homes or home lives or whatever the case is, and being able to, again, use yoga as a way to help them through it.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of comes back to my nursing desires in college and this dance movement therapy, like how can we heal people essentially with movement. So I feel like that's going to be my next adventure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
Welcome back to In the Act. I'm Erica Hunsinger. We're with Molly King. And we're talking about the next foray into a newness of learning of trauma-focused yoga teaching or certification. And I guess when you were talking earlier about dance therapy, I had not heard of that before. I've heard of like recreational therapy.
Sure.
And I wonder if it was housed under there, because that's sometimes where art therapy is housed, and the arts in that way.
Sure. Yeah.
So with this yoga with a trauma focus, I think so much of what our world has been dealing with has, not just the individual students of dealing with that, but it's not like that just stopped, right? Like everything that's a problem in our lives continues to be a problem, as well as the pandemic.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so it's this like multi-layered things to move through and reflect on and to try and learn from and still be balanced and grounded. And so in thinking about it from that perspective and knowing yoga is such a great, focusing on breathing and tuning into your body. And could you talk a little bit more about yoga? I think some people get the wrong impression.
Yeah, they do. They really do.
And can you speak on that a little?
Yeah. Well, something that I always start off with my yoga classes too is reminding students that yoga is not a religion. Because I think a lot of times people get wrapped up in that, like, oh, you're doing that yoga and,
Exactly.
what is it going to do to you? And it's going to make you feel really great.
Right. You're going to breathe well.
Yeah, exactly.
Tune in.
So just kind of reminding, like, this is not a religion. I had a family maybe like 10 years ago who like had signed their child up and then wanted to pull the child out once I started really realizing like what was happening, in my dance classes.
Right.
And so just having to explain that like yoga is literally like postures and you're stretching and you're learning how to breathe. And so if you are a Buddhist, you might bring in yoga into your Buddhist practices.
Sure.
But doing yoga doesn't make you a Buddhist or, whatever the case is. Like just doing yoga just is another way to, stretch your body, to tap into sensations and just giving a moment for your body and mind to be quiet.
Yeah.
So in my world of how I teach yoga, I feel like I don't know if I would fit into some of the yoga studios in town. Like, I love my friend Katie Hammer. Like, she is
Love her.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And I love what she's, been doing in the community. And I take her classes. And I think to myself, like, I don't know if I could be Katie Hammer. Because in my world with yoga, I've been working with middle and high school students for so long that just my way of teaching it is just kind of slow.
Yeah.
Because it's a learning place and space. So we're in postures and students are asking questions like, what muscle group should I be feeling right now? Or like, I feel a pain here. What can I do to fix that? So I feel
Back
like
off.
Sorry. So I feel like it's definitely like this learning space. And so
Sure.
I always think to myself, like, if I wanted to teach in the community, I would really have to make sure I'm marketing myself as like not your typical yoga class, because I want people to like understand like the foundations of what we're doing.
Yeah.
I think that really comes back to my yoga certification with Marcy.
Yes.
Just really being able to like be slow in how you approach yoga and just really thinking and being intentional about
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Or when I go to Katie's class, like I'm in there, I'm moving, I'm sweating buckets.
Right.
And it's phenomenal. Like 75 minutes of just like being told what to do. I don't have to think about it, moving
Right.
through asanas. And it's like, okay, great, But like in my space, it's like we're going to go through it one at a time. And I think my job too as a yoga instructor with my high schoolers, especially, is like if you go out into the world and go to a yoga class, I want to make sure that like you know how to do a yoga class,
Yeah, right.
So if somebody tells you, okay, we're going to move through sun salutations, I don't want you to be like, well, what's a sun salutation, or how do I start that? So, so just making sure that the students are aware of just like your foundational poses.
Yeah, right. and that meditative space for the self.
Exactly.
And that's been such a important thread, I think, that runs through yoga, but that's also being more widely accepted in the general public too.
Exactly.
Of like, I think they're kind of umbrelling it with like mindfulness.
Yep,
and
I was just going to say that. Yeah. And telling students too, like if you are somebody who prays, like you could use your meditation or mindfulness time as a time to pray.
Right.
You know, like you can make your practice however you want it to be.
Absolutely.
But to know that when you're sitting in quietness, like you're not releasing demons, or I don't know, like I just feel like people think that like when you meditate bad things happen, and it's like, no, it's not like you're succumbing to spirit. I don't know, like I think it just
there's
boggles my mind.
I think people talk about it as being a spiritual experience because it can be such a wonderful, amazing internal experience because it's so difficult for us to like shut down our minds and just think about our breathing and just feel in tune with our bodies. Yeah. And I also think that it's kind of scary to do that or can be. And, you know, there's so much of like positive psychology that I think is kind of waning a little bit, thankfully, but of like, don't think about those things.
Yes.
And I think there can be a release. It's not necessarily about demons and Christianity or you know, all these other things, but it is about that releasing of internal struggles in some ways, or at least breathing through them. Like they're not going to change.
No.
But at least you're sitting with it and being present with it.
Exactly.
And that is such a monumental feat to do.
Yes.
Just to be present with yourself.
Yeah. And that is a difficult thing to do because sometimes, things come up and you may not want to deal with it, but that's essentially what yoga is teaching you is this thing needs to be dealt with.
Absolutely.
And so you're making awareness of it and then you're letting it go, you know, whether that is letting it go for that moment because you really want to be, you know, quiet in your mind, or maybe that's something that you know, okay, I need to deal with this because it's still, you know, erupting and coming back. Yeah.
Right.
But it's difficult to be quiet. And I've told my students that sometimes when I meditate, I'll bring a journal with me and I will write things down that are coming to me. So sometimes it could be like, oh yeah, I have to go grocery shopping tonight. Can't forget about these things. Write that down in the journal, you know? And okay, now I'm going to let that go, try to get back to some quietness. So I told my students, like, bring some paper with, because sometimes too, you might think of something. Like sometimes when you're quiet is when the creativity comes to you.
Right.
And so I noticed that, like, if I'm quiet for a moment, I think about choreography, or I might think about something that I forgot to do a week ago, or something that's coming up that I need to make sure that I'm ready for. And so I just tell them, like, write it down and let it go, you know?
I love that.
So.
And I love that that's you can make it the way that you need to be.
Yeah.
Right? Like, oh, you're not supposed to have pencil and tools next to you. Like that's,
you can.
But you can.
Yeah. Or if you want to have music in the background, like there's, you know, there are some yoga instructors who are going to say, no, completely quiet. And others will say, well, no, if music helps, you know, put your earbuds in or have some music in the background. Like you have to make yourself comfortable.
Right.
Otherwise, it's never going to work for you.
Right.
So again, I think it's like that shifting of we're going to keep those foundational practices, but we're also going to adapt to what makes sense for that person.
Do you think that your yoga training helped to inform your dance instruction as well?
I think so. I know it's helped my parenting.
Oh, cool.
I find myself like, okay, we're going to breathe through this, you know, like if somebody's having a temper tantrum or whatever the case is, like, okay, we're going to breathe through this. We're going to grab our mindful jar, or we're going to do some, you know, lotus fingers, or, you know, like I feel like I find myself using that in my parenting, or reminding myself, okay, take a deep breath before I approach the situation. So I feel like in my parenting, oh, yes, it is there. I think in some ways it probably does influence my teaching as well. Yeah. But I just know, like, personally and parenting-wise, it's there.
100%.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I love that. And then it's great because you practice, it fortifies yourself, it fortifies your engagements and relationships.
Yes.
It's like this full circle.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's a lot of energy in who you're connecting with in your relationships with mostly middle schoolers and the children that you're and to maintain that interest, connect with where they are, and find inspiring things both for yourself, drawn through you, as you said. What are some things that are inspiring for you right now, or places or spaces or things that like, oh my gosh, the sun totally, the beach, or, like what are some of the things that kind of influence like where you are right now with coming up with your ideas?
Sure. Oh man. I feel like I'm inspired a lot by the people around me.
Yeah.
And so I really feel like my strong network of girlfriends allows, I don't know, I get inspired by them. Like my friend Raina is always coming up with different like book ideas, like, oh, have you read this book? Oh, you need to read this article. And I just love that. So I feel like I'm getting inspired by her to view my world differently.
Yeah.
My friend Lauren is really into music, so she'll send me like, oh, did you hear this song? And I'm like, ooh, I love that. I'm going to use that for a warm up, or I'm going to create some choreography.
Love that.
To that. So I just really feel like I have this like group of friends who I'm constantly bombarded with in a good way of like new perspectives or new things that I can bring into my life that, essentially affects how I then do things.
Do everything.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. Oh, I love that. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And so important to have that community and base.
Yeah. And I just feel like, I don't know, with being a parent right now, I feel like I don't read as much as I used to.
Sure.
Or like when I have a quiet moment, I'm making lists for things that I have to do like the next day. Like I can't say like, oh, I've listened to this podcast, the other day and I really loved it. Like I feel like I don't have that. I think that's why my friends are so important, because they help me with parenting. They help me feel sane. They help me in this moment right now, which is so different. If you were to ask me like 8 years ago, I could tell you all like the new books that I'm reading, or,
Right.
podcasts.
But you have to navigate it differently.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're taking care of littles.
Yep.
Yeah. And yourself. And I just come back to the balancing part.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you were talking about, the community and inspirations, and where are you right now with the German dance club? Like, are you guys able to perform at all? Are you still able to connect?
Yeah. So I haven't been with the group for probably a year and a half.
Yeah.
Almost like 2 years. Because... oh my gosh, I'm trying to get the whole timeline set. I usually only do a few shows during the year, just because the German dance group meets in Freistadt, which is right outside Mequon.
Oh, okay.
And so it's not like that horrible of a drive, but I just noticed myself during the school year, like once 7:30 comes, I don't want to leave my house.
No way.
Like it's dark, it's cold, sometimes the weather's not great. So I do a lot of dancing with them during the summer months, because that's when I have the most time.
Sure.
So I have that really good rapport with my, dance director, where it's like, you won't really see me during the school year, but summertime, I'm there for you. And so during COVID and everything, obviously there weren't festivals and things like that. So, we weren't meeting or performing. And then my husband got really sick. So then obviously I wasn't wanting to come to practice and stuff, because I was helping him and wanting to keep him safe as well, too, not being around, trying to not put myself and risk myself being around other people that I could bring back germs, or
Absolutely.
Whatever the case is with that.
Right.
But luckily they have been able to do a few performances. So my hope is to get back with them next summer.
Yeah.
When hopefully things have calmed down in my life,
Right.
but I still connect with a lot of the people within the group. And I actually had Nora in the children's group, which was like full circle for me, having her in the kids group where I started, and she was there for one practice and then COVID hit.
Oh my gosh. She must have been devastated.
Yes. And so like all through COVID, she was practicing her sidestep and practicing the songs. And just, it was really lovely. So she's been asking like, when can I come back to German dance? So I almost feel like my role, I think in that might reverse now. I might be more of like a parent versus an active performer.
Sure.
Because, of my daughter there.
Right.
And my girlfriends and I joke because when we were in the adult group, in college years, and the people that were in the dance group that were parents, started to not, come as much anymore, we'd be like, what is their problem? Like, why can't you still be in the dance group with kids? And now we all have kids. We're like, okay,
got it.
Now we get it. Yeah. It's just a little bit harder to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, for a while there, I felt like a festival every weekend.
Oh my gosh.
Like there was
right.
always something to do. And so that gets hard to do when you have little ones around.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Yeah. So I'm almost kind of excited to take on a new role of like more of a parent.
Transformation.
Yeah. Where I get to take her to practices, and then hopefully I'll, be able to do a show here or there for myself. But I'm like looking forward to that new role.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And being the witness and absorb the performance then instead of I like the three areas that we've talked about in terms of dance or performance, actually performing it for somebody, doing it for yourself.
Yes.
Being witness to another person performing, teaching. There are all these various levels and roles that you've played and that kind of switch and move around for you. Yeah. What would you recommend for somebody who is looking to be more, present or creative with their body?
Yeah. That's a great question. I would recommend for them to find a space that they enjoy.
Oh.
So whether that is like, I really enjoy Terry Andre, and just being able to like hike through there. I just also really love my backyard. So it's like finding a place that somebody really enjoys being in and finding the things that make you feel good. So like when I go on my hikes or I'm hanging out in the backyard, I always have coffee with me because that always makes me feel good. Yeah. So it could be as simple as like having your coffee with you in your place, and just, just acknowledging the space that you're in and just being quiet with it. I just really feel like that quietness allows for things to transform and happen. So that'd be my advice. Like grab the things that make you feel good, take them to the place that makes you feel good.
Yes.
And be in that space.
And that sounds so simple.
Yeah. Because it should only be that simple. Like we shouldn't have to complicate it.
It's so true. That navigation, I think, is like making the time to do that. Actually saying, nope. Put your notebook out. Write down those things that you have to do. Put them on a list or whatever you need to do to get them out. Yeah. And then create that time for yourself.
I really am inspired a lot by music. So I always find myself, even having like earbuds in or just having music playing in the background. I just feel like music calms me and just makes me feel good. So I'm like, I don't know. I really love Lord Huron.
I don't know.
Oh, gosh. They're wonderful.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Kind of in the realm of like Avett Brothers.
Oh, yeah.
And like Vance Joy. I don't know, kind of this like indie folk.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think I go like Bon Iver and
yeah.
But like even Mariah Carey, just like any like
Right, I know.
anything that I
Yeah.
can belt sing.
Yes.
is
I know
like-
that feels good too.
I have to have a sing along for some things.
No, I like that.
It gets something out
Yes.
of me.
Yeah.
But I think for movement, I prefer instrumental.
Yes,
in
agreed.
whatever form.
Yeah, I agree with that. I try to find things that don't have a lot of lyrics because I feel like my students have a tendency to then follow what the lyrics say. And sometimes I
Like
create
express exactly like
Yes.
they're leaving on an airplane and they put
know.
an airplane out and they put like their
Yes,
arms out. Right,
yes.
right. Very literal and
Yeah, which is great, but sometimes I don't want that.
Right.
So I found myself more later on in my teaching, like really trying to find good, like funky music that doesn't have lyrics, that you just like you feel the music.
Yes.
And you're listening to the rhythm and the tempo and the beat and just feeling that versus like listening to the words and then almost then having to do what the words say. Like,
Right.
no, what does your body want to do? Don't be influenced by what other people have to tell you. Like, be influenced by yourself. And so, like, with non-instrumental music, you have to, like, listen to yourself. And I really like that. Because I think, too, with middle and high schoolers, you're constantly being told, like, what to do all the time.
or what you should do.
Yeah.
Or what you're supposed to do.
Exactly.
Or-
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Right.
then when you're in the space just with music and you're moving, you're just doing what you want to do. And same with yoga. Like I always remind my students, like, this is your time to do what you want to do.
Right.
No one's telling you. You know, like I'm giving you postures, but even then you could say like, I'm just going to sit in child's pose for a
Right.
while. Like I'm just going to do that. And
is
I'm going to
what
be
I need.
okay with that, you know? And if you're sitting in child's pose for week after week after week, well, then we'll talk about it and we'll
Right.
figure out like what's happening here. But
Yeah.
like, this is your time for you.
Right. Mm-hmm. I mean, what a gift
Yeah.
that is. And what a gift you are for your students and for the people who know you to be a champion of tuning in and being yourself and really listening and carving out the time and being joyful about
Yeah,
it
yeah.
as well. And I can't believe at the very end we were talking about music because it's so much a part of
Yes.
who you are and what you want.
Yeah.
And like how it it plays with each other.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
If people want to get a hold of you,
Yeah.
at your amazing, plug Étude. Oh my gosh,
Yes.
I think Étude teachers are the most creative, interesting, flexible, smart people I've ever been around.
I would agree with that.
They're amazing, and
Yeah.
it provides such an incredible space for children to learn.
Yeah.
So
I always feel like Tad and I have spoken about like the land of misfit toys and how we all can like think about times in our life where we felt like a misfit.
yes,
And Étude allows us to like feel like we're not misfits, you
Yes,
know?
right.
Like these quirks or things that made us not feel like a part of a community allow us to be a community at Étude.
I love it.
And I really like that a lot, you know?
Yeah.
Because we've all had instances where like we've been shunned from a community, but we don't do that at Étude. We foster those like individual traits and things and
And lock arms on it.
yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Molly.
Thank you so much.
So do you have contact information for us?
Yes. Yeah. So I'm just trying to think where to get a hold of me. Like I feel like there's so many places, but probably mking@etudegroup.org.
Excellent. Perfect.
If you really want my cell phone number, I'll give it out.
Don't do that. You totally would, though.
I know, I would.
What's up?
I'm on Instagram and Facebook, so people are welcome to seek me out and send me a message there too.
Perfect.
Yeah.
great. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for spending time this morning for you or with us.
Yes.
For us, with us, prior to your second cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Or first cup of coffee.
I haven't had any coffee.
Boy,
so this is pretty good. I can only imagine if I had coffee. So I did pretty good for no coffee.
Fantastic. Love it. Thanks, Molly.
Yeah, thank you. Yay.
In the Act is produced in the studios at Mead Public Library in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. More information on the web at meadpl.org.